So years ago, I worked in the South building there at the headquarters in food distribution. It's where the employee relations is now. I worked with another lady there who's no longer there, and we were sitting there working. Well, of course, it was this time of the year. It was fall. You had your soccer players in the parking lot or the park next by the church across from the headquarters. And we were sitting there working, and she got up. She got up and went downstairs, and she came back. She didn't say why she had gotten up. And so I got up and went to the restroom. If you've ever been into the headquarters, the bathroom doors are about 1.5 inches thick, made of real wood. I went in and I came back and I sat down, or no, I got up and went down to the front door, and I came back and sat down, and we started working, and she said, "My husband's going to bring dinner up here in a little bit." And I said to her, "Oh, well, maybe that was him who was knocking on the door." And so she looked at me and she said, "Oh, did you hear somebody knocking too?" And I said, "Yeah," I said, "it was a stern knock." And she said, "I did too." She said, "That's why I got up a while ago and went downstairs." She said, "I didn't see anybody." So we were sitting there and we were working a little bit, and I noticed the kids over there playing ball. And I said, it was probably those kids. I said, because I think one of them may have ran over here and they were hitting the wall with their ball. And she said, "Yeah, you're probably right." So about that time, her husband showed up. And he comes in, he sits down, we're sitting there eating. He gets up and he goes out to the door, and he comes back and he said, "Did y'all hear that knock?" And I was like, "Was it a hard, stern knock?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "I think it's time for us to go home." And he said, "Why?" And his wife said, "I heard the knock too. There's nobody there." Well, years ago, growing up, my mother always used to tell us, if you hear somebody knocking and you don't see anybody, you're either inviting death or you're inviting evil spirits in. And so I told them it's time to go. So as we're walking out the door, my car is parked in the South building in that parking lot by the road. It's a 4-door Buick. I go and I get in it, and I go 2 blocks around the corner. My friend standing there, I get out of the car, and she said, "Wanda, are you going to let that lady out of your car?" And I said, "There's nobody in my car." She said, "Yeah, there's an elder lady sitting in the back seat of your car," whom at that time my boyfriend's mother was a little elderly lady, and that's who she assumed it was. And I told her, I said, "There's no one in there." Well, the next morning I go back to work, and we're sitting there, and the girl said, "Wanda, I know who was in your car. It was a little old lady sitting in there." And of course she assumed it was my boyfriend's mother too. And I said, "There was no one in my car." And so after that point, I was like, it's time to get rid of the car. Years ago, my husband and I, we moved into this, it was a rehab Indian home. And if you've ever been in one, they're kind of like a shotgun house. There was 3 bedrooms on one side and a master on the left side. Well, we had a daughter who was in 8th grade and 2 boys. They were stair-step. Well, it was time to go to school. The next day, school was starting. And so I told Dwight, I said, "We need to put them in bed early." So they were already in bed. We go to bed. I'm already in bed, laying there. And he's coming down the hall, and he lays in bed, and I said, "You need to tell Erica that she needs to go to bed. It's late." And he said, "Well, she's in bed." And I said, "No, there's somebody singing." And I said, "So you need to tell her to go to bed." And so he got up, he went down the hall, and he opened her bedroom door. Well, she was asleep. So then he goes around the corner into the kitchen, and he hears it coming from our laundry room. He opens the laundry room door, and he said you could hear the music coming from there. Well, you have to know my husband. Me being Choctaw, he's not Choctaw. And of course, being Choctaw, we call them Nahululs, meaning white. And so he didn't believe in anything like that. So he gets back in bed, he lays there, and it was as if he was in shock. And I looked at him and I said, "Are you okay?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm fine. He was afraid to tell me at that time, and especially that time of the night, because he knew I would have got the kids and we would have gone. We would have been gone left the house. And so finally he says, the music wasn't coming from her room. And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "It was coming from the laundry room." And I said, "From our laundry room?" He said, "Yeah." And I said, "That's strange." And he said, "Very." Well, the next morning we get up and we're sitting in the kitchen, and it was strange because you could feel this warmth air coming through. It was my back door opened, and I had vegetables sitting on the counter, and whatever it was walked in, and it just knocked that can of corn off onto the floor. And my husband's sitting there and he's looking at it, and he looks at me and he says, "There's something going on in this house." I said, "It's time to call the pastor." So we called the pastor. We did a cleanse on the house, that's burning sage. My mother always believed if you burn it the front door, do it at the back door, because that flows through any evil that might be in there. Well, curiosity still had me, so I was thinking, there's something else that was in this house. So I started doing research. The house had burnt 10 years before we had moved in there. A man in a wheelchair had died in the fire in that laundry room. And so I called my pastor back and I told him the story, and he said, "Let's do another cleanse on the house."